Hey everyone, either welcome back or welcome to my channel. And in today's video, I actually want to talk weather and migraines. So before I get into any more details, time for the intro. One of my biggest triggers for migraines is the weather. And the biggest reason why I want to talk about this specific subject is because when it comes to the weather, this is something that is completely out of my control. When I get migraines that are because of weather changes, there's not really much I can do to avoid it. I talk about IIH pretty much exclusively on this channel. It's what it's about. And the reason why I'm talking about this particular topic is because I also believe that everything that I mention in this video also applies to IIH in the exact same way. I will be referring to only migraines throughout the rest of this video, but everything that I talk about, I honestly believe that there's a relationship to IIH in the specific ways that I'm going to be talking about migraines in this video. As the seasons go on, there can be different triggers in every season that I particularly have, but what you're going to see is that they have very similar reasons for why they occur. So it could be dehydration, it could be barometric pressure changes. Now, I'm actually developed this video based upon an article that I found when I was looking up weather with migraines before doing this video. And this article is from the American Migraine Foundation, and it's called Seasonal Migraine Triggers. It is from December 14th, 2017, so it is a few years old, but everything is relevant in my opinion because I have experienced all of this before too. As for me and particular seasons that are really bad for IIH and migraines in particular, the spring, I would say the middle of April until about the start of June is one of the worst. And also in the fall from about October until December. So I find particularly when the weather is really unstable to be the hardest time for me with migraines. Now, I do have migraine triggers when it comes to the weather in the summer and the winter as well, but I just find that I feel overall so much better because usually it's a little bit more steady with climate during those particular times. It's either really, really hot for quite a while in the summer, or it's usually very, very cold in the winter for extended period of times, at least here in Saskatchewan. When it comes to the summer and winter, it's mainly storms at that point that can trigger symptoms for me, which I'll get into that in a second. Barometric pressure changes, I just talked about that, are definitely one of the bigger triggers for migraines for me. And an example that I like to give that's the most obvious is when there's a storm coming in, my head will really, really hurt. I feel this with summer storms, although it just doesn't last as long with summer storms, but I also feel it with major winter storms. And to be honest, the big winter storms can result in a couple of days before the storm actually hits in symptoms. One of the other big reasons for me for getting a migraine with weather and having what I consider, I think, a lot of migraines in a row is when the temperature takes a huge swing. This actually is quite common here in Saskatchewan in the spring and fall. The weather can be very unpredictable when it comes to ups and downs and changes. And I know I've mentioned, even on my own Facebook page, my personal Facebook page, when I've been getting frustrated with a lot of weather changes, it really is hard on me. The reason why I prefer it to actually stay a steady temperature is because I find when the temperature changes a lot and frequently, so both significantly, in that goes from minus 25 to, let's say, 0, back down to minus 25 a couple days later, I find that a lot more harder to deal with than having minus 30 for 2 or 3 weeks in a row, because you're having to not only compensate for those weather changes, but then you're having to adjust to what you have to do in order to keep yourself from getting a migraine at those lower temperatures. In the spring, we often do get a lot of rain. Rain usually comes with low pressure systems, and low pressure systems means that the barometric pressure is changing. So I think that's one of the main reasons why spring can be such a problem, but it's also that drastic change in temperatures as well that can cause the problems for me, at least in the spring. In the summer, you often have really, really big heat waves in Saskatchewan, and this can lead to dehydration if you're not careful, and it can be very difficult actually to keep up with the amount of fluids that you need to take in. One of the things I honestly think now is one of my biggest triggers for headaches and migraines is being dehydrated, because when I'm dehydrated, I seem to get a lot more headaches, and when I have a decent amount of fluid intake a day, it seems like my headaches are better under control, even if the weather is causing me issues. Now, one of the reasons why the article actually mentioned why summer can be a bit of an issue for people is because you have a bit of a different sleep schedule during summer because of the extra length of light. Now, in Saskatchewan, we do not observe daylight savings time. So as long as I keep my bedtime and wake up time, or the time I get up, fairly similar, there's no change in that for me between the winter and the summer, because we don't change our clocks in the spring and then pull them back in the fall. I honestly think too, daylight savings time with IIH and migraines would be a really, really tough adjustment, because I know that when I move between different time zones, I struggle already because I'm so used to being in that routine that it can be hard to adjust at the start for that particular routine. And I think this is hard on everybody because it messes with your sleep schedule and all of that. But I think it wouldn't surprise me at all if it plays a bigger role and makes it harder on people with IIH, migraines, and other chronic illnesses, just because I think one of the biggest things that I do actually to be able to maintain what I do all of the time, even now, is by keeping my routine fairly steady. I think the article missed talking about daylight savings time in this particular way too. I know they mention that the longer days can affect routine, but they didn't specifically mention daylight savings time, so I think that's an important consideration, especially if you want to talk about changes in routine and all of that. When it comes to winter, they talk about dry hair leading to dehydration. This is one of the biggest problems I actually have in winter, and it's because I don't often get the urge to drink fluids. I always used to have this problem, actually, even in years before, where I could get dehydrated in the winter actually quite easily, because in the summer, our summer is actually quite humid, so it makes you want to drink fluids. But in the winter, because it's so dry, I often feel like I don't drink enough fluids because I don't have that urge to drink fluids. So I find definitely the dehydration can be a problem for migraines in the winter. I definitely agree with them on that. Another big one is massive snowstorms. I've already talked about this, and these massive snowstorms often come with barometric pressure changes that are quite significant. I actually got this idea because I was asked about my opinion on climate change and affecting migraines and IIH. Now, when I was asked this question, I really didn't know how to respond because I've never looked into this. My answer is I have honestly no idea. I don't know if scientists have looked into the answer, but it's definitely a question that they should be answering. When I don't know something, number one, I often go and see if I can find anything on it, which is how I came across this particular article that I'm talking about today. But I also tend to think about whether it's possible or not. I'm going to argue that yes, I do believe that migraines and IIH could definitely be being impacted by climate change. And here's why. So we know with climate change that it's definitely bringing in stronger storms. This means that not only are you getting stronger storms, which means bigger barometric pressure changes. Talk to anyone who has migraines or IIH and they'll tell you that storm, I can tell it's close to us because I have the worst headache ever right now. Or they'll tell you I have the worst migraine right now because of the storm that's in the area. Once in a generation storms are now happening more frequently. So this means that you're more likely to be dealing with not only the weather causing problems, and storms again means barometric pressure changes, but you could be dealing with the stress of having a natural disaster. And I think stress is a huge major role, or at least plays a major role in IIH and migraines. Now, I'm not able to definitively say whether, yes, this is definitely a factor in this, but by taking what we already know about what causes migraines already, so dehydration, barometric pressure changes, it could definitely be made that an argument that climate change and IIH and migraines definitely do have a relationship to one another. And it's another reason why we must all take climate change very seriously. As for whether there's been shown to be an impact, I honestly don't know, but I'm hoping that A, it either is being worked on, or B, that they get on this particular subject, because it's a really, really important topic I think that needs to be answered. At the bottom of this article, they talk about how to avoid seasonal triggers with migraines. So keeping track of diet, exercise, keeping on a sleep schedule, really, really important. I know I've said the same thing. Another thing they emphasize is keeping a normal schedule. I know I've emphasized that a few times in videos where I said a normal routine is extremely, extremely important for me to be able to do everything that I do. If you're enjoying my content, please feel free to subscribe. When you subscribe, you actually help me reach more people with IIH and migraines. Remember that it's completely free. It just allows us to get more reach and help us raise more awareness for IIH and migraines at the same time. When you subscribe, don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss any of my upcoming future content. If you're watching this on Facebook or Instagram, be sure to like and follow. If you enjoyed this particular video, be sure to give it a like. And as for now, that's it for today. Bye, everyone.